Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M Cave mystery. Today focusing in on another interesting article which has come about in recent time. The name of the website medium.com. I don't think I've looked at it before, and as for having a quick glance over, it looks like it goes into a bit of deeper research, including the CCTV footage which supposedly depicts Kenny Veach alive in 2018. Overall, it'll be interesting to analyse and read the article to see what their conclusion is, if credit is given or not, and any additional information details which have never been talked about or looked at before. And whilst we do go through these articles, it's important to see if we can find the archives of what Kenny Veach once said, considering his original comments have been deleted since. So join me today for an article analysis breakdown and giving you my raw reaction to it. Just as a heads up, I did upload an earlier video today on the Kenny Veach case in regard to the Really Robin situation and the promise of that M Cave hike footage. Just basically giving an update about it and where things are at. Make sure not to miss out on it. You'll be able to find the link to the video either in the comment section or top right corner where the I symbol is up there. When you click there, you get a drop-down menu box with the full playlist and some loose videos attached. Welcome if you're currently here during the live premiere. You can let me know your live reactions in the chat on the right side of the screen. And at any point or time, and those watching on catch-up, feel free to drop a comment below under the video to let me know what you think of the article and the details provided. And we'll go from there. So with that being said, let's get into it. The title of this article reads The Disappearance of Kenny Veach by Chris Bigage. So that's quite interesting, quite simplistic title, not including the terms Area 51 or M Cave or vibrations. Kind of refreshing that it's all about Kenny Veach, but will it also include enough about the environment? Let's see. It reads, Kenny Veach was an amateur YouTuber who purported to find a mysterious M-shaped cave deep in the Mojave Desert. But when he returned to the area to investigate, he was never seen again. Well, it's not just returning back to search, because before that he went out on his recorded hike. And in terms of the total amount of times he was out there, it might shock you. Take in mind that video is still to come. I just thought I would give it a day or two to let things settle with the shocking developments in recent time. It's interesting how it's worded that Kenny was supposedly an amateur YouTuber. In some ways you could say that. What determines a person being amateur, as in the quality of their videos, the style, the upload schedule, whether they're a part of the YouTube partner program or not, whether they've got a big following or not, what determines the big following? I guess it could be down to individual opinion and perspective. There's been other articles which have referred to Kenny Veach as a YouTuber, and to be honest, if you look at his channel present time, you wouldn't expect or think of him as a YouTuber because he only has a couple of, 4 or 5 videos on his channel. However, if in the past you were aware, Kenny did have multiple hike videos, supposedly. So he could be considered a YouTuber, true. There's the original photo of Kenny from his October one, and with the mine shaft visible there, as you can see, it's open, but in recent time, it's no longer, as it's been filled in literally. And I think we probably, maybe tomorrow, the day after, we'll see, I think a live stream is on the way. I think it's needed. Still from Kenny's original screenshot, basically. The Mojave has no shortage of lost person cases. Hardly a year goes by without an unfortunate hiker meeting their end in a remote corner of this vast expanse of wilderness. And some are never found again. Accidental deaths in the desert are so common that park officials even have a name for the phenomenon, death by GPS. Well, the thing is, with Kenny Veach, he didn't use a GPS, didn't rely on it. Most of these disappearances are met with a community-led search and rescue operation, and perhaps receive some local news coverage before slowly drifting away from public memory. And then there's the case of Kenny Veach. Exactly. because when it comes to a community-led search and operation, that was not big scale. It didn't last that long either. And as for the family, they seem to not react too much either. As for local news coverage, very limited. And ever since, local news coverage articles have been taken down from online, which is very weird. In regard to Kenny's disappearance, has grown from a grim local interest story to becoming by far the most talked about lost person case in the entire desert region. You could put an argument and say true, and maybe just in general in the world, because a lot of different countries, from India to Brazil to the US in general, and the different states have talked about the Kenny Veach case. It may in fact be one of the most famous disappearances in the entire country. Well, there might be some arguments there, but if it is, I'm glad in a way, because I'm a part of doing the coverage on the case. So as awareness can be spread and more people can learn, and we've been around for a while, then hopefully things work out in some way. Kenny's story has spawned countless articles, theories and community groups, such as what we're reading right now. But these community groups, I wouldn't say is that vast or far. You might get some subgroups and pages here and there, but not that common and not often that active. On Reddit, not always talked about, just a few points here and there. From articles in general online, absolutely. On and off over the years, but most of them tell the regurgitated story and do not include the updates nor give credit to. So it's very disappointing that there are multiple YouTube channels dedicated to uncovering his fate. Oh no, wait, don't tell me. Are they going to give credit to my channel? Maybe not. But it's interesting. For once, an article, a page has indirectly, finally acknowledged that there are people out there dedicated to covering the Kenny Veach M Cave case, which technically would apply to me. And that's not being narcissistic, that's just stating it as a fact, because I have over 500 videos on the case. And then if you apply it to hikers as well, of course, SB Vegas Adventures, Jeff Clark, and Jay Chuck at one point, Jay Silverheels, and everyone else in between. So it's good that it actually acknowledges that side of the case, not just in general about the case, but the people that cover it till this day, and not just about the original story, but what happened beyond or what could have. So it's refreshing to see, uncovering his fate of Kenny, yeah. But it also says, and more than one professional TV episode has been made about the case. What? HLN? The Mojave Nightmare? There is even a full-length 2-hour documentary on his disappearance and another 1.5-hour movie based on the story. I think the movie is to do with a different person or a character played in the movie called Gary something. I believe we did an article analysis of it some months ago, and it was also being compared, or the style of footage, to the Blair Witch Project, as in how it was recorded, not real life, but like in a movie, the style, and then influenced in some ways based off Kenny Veach. It's interesting. But even now, over 10 years since the last time Kenny was seen, investigators are no closer to uncovering his ultimate fate. His body has never been found, true, and public interest in the case is as strong as ever. That's true too. To say that investigators or just people online are no closer to the ultimate fate, in terms of using the word ultimate and the fate aspect, the true outcome of Kenny Veach, I guess it's fair. They're using specific language here, like the true end game of the case, where things are really at. Are we there yet? No. But if people were to say no progress has been made whatsoever, that would be a little impetuous. because progress has been made in new understandings, new questions, new observations along the way, side mysteries, some of which tied up, some hikers and previous groups reaching out and admitting that they put that there, they accidentally broke this or that. So some progress has been made, clearing up, open-ended questions, making it a little bit easier to follow along. But of course, other aspects of progress in new leads and possible links and strange behaviour and activity from past to present and what it could link onto next. So I guess you could also argue that the public interest is strong as ever, because for day-to-day coverage almost on the Kenny Veach case, that's what I'm doing, and taking consideration the last few weeks, that's what I have done since returning. Because previously I was spending over a year covering the Noah Presgrove case, and then before that I spent a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, covering the Dylan Rounds case. There's been a long spell since away, but I think it's made up for it ever since with the back-to-back videos. Hopefully people have the stamina to be able to keep up, and hopefully that the videos don't fall into the sea of uncertainty and bleakness, and if so, I'll just have to redo videos in the future and bring points back up once again so there is awareness. Now, back to the article. Kenny Veach was a lifelong Las Vegas local who was known for his love of hiking the Mojave Desert and his quirky inventions, although limited, both of which he would document on his YouTube channel, Snakebit McGee. Yeah. His channel first picked up the attention of the broader community after he left a comment on a YouTube video titled Son of an Area 51 Technician. He recounted the story of finding a mysterious M-shaped cave near Nellis Air Force Base, which is unusual, where he claimed to have felt his whole body. It began to vibrate. The military base is adjacent to the larger Nevada testing ground, the location of the infamous Area 51 government facility, hinting at possible connection. The military base, Nellis Air Force Base, military base, is not adjacent to the testing ground nor Area 51, because Nellis Air Force Base, the true base, is actually east, the outer skirts of Las Vegas, closer to Frenchman Mountains and Sunrise Mountains. Nellis Testing Range, or Bombing Range, is what's near to Area 51 onwards. There's the original comment by Snakebit McGee. It says 5 years ago. That means that comment was screenshotted, as in 5 years on from when the original comment was posted. And by now, it's 10 plus years, but you can't find the comment anymore. So depending on the year of when or how old the comment is, that dates back to when exactly a person decided to take the screenshots and archive it, basically. Commenters quickly responded to Kenny, with most encouraging him to return to the cave and document his findings. One user, however, ominously warned him not to explore the cave, saying that if he does, he won't get out. Let me kill Mister, of course. It was shortly after that exchange that Kenny went out to the desert to film his most famous video, his attempt to return to the M cave, the October one of 2014. This time armed with a 9mm pistol. He started recording at the entrance to an abandoned mineshaft, some 15 miles due north of Las Vegas city limits, and said the cave was somewhere to his northwest, down a valley, Pitcher Canyon, and over a ridge. Well, before that is Wild Horse Pass, then down Pitcher Canyon. The video then fast forwards to him walking around a gully, saying that the cave looked to be exactly in an area like this. Okay, so we've kind of jumped ahead a bit too far here, because there were some of the details within the footage which hasn't been acknowledged here. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's just break it down bit by bit. So yeah, he did start his video at the mine shaft. He parked down Joe May Road. It takes 3 to 4 hours on foot from where he parked to get to the mine shaft. 3 to 4 hours of unrecorded footage, or at least footage which wasn't included in his hike video. So why did he only start recording so far into the hike when there's other things along the way? such as the other mine shaft which SB Vegas had come across in recent time. You think that could be a starting point? So then Kenny could lay out what the canyon looks like. You got Jerme Guzzler over there on the left, you got another canyon further up on the right, and then ahead you got the mine shaft, and you've got Wild Horse Pass. You know, if you're redoing your hike to relocate the cave, to show it as proof that it does exist, and maybe you're also showing proof of where it is too, surely you would document little bits of footage along the way. Not like so far in, then start recording, but little bits from start, midsection to the end to make it easier for people to follow and find themselves, unless Kenny didn't want that. Now, after Kenny finished at the mine shaft, before Wild Horse Pass, I believe he was collecting some pinion nuts. Then after that, cut to him over Wild Horse Pass, panning the camera around where he acknowledges that more so the Jerme Guzzler area, the flat top, which is kind of like southwest the way he turns the camera, but it's on the other side of the mountains where you've got other canyons where Jeff Clark went up years later, where Really Robin, the original, went up too. And Kenny, in his hike video, said, there are caves over there, but that's not where I found the M cave. Still, you could interpret it as a form of misdirection. When he says it's not over there, he actually means it is. Why would you question that or think that? Because where Kenny said it was supposed to be, down another canyon, which was called Picture Canyon, it ends up not being there. Unless the environment's been altered with, so when he looks by and passes, he can't remember it or it confuses him. Or it's just not there to begin with, and it's actually where he says it wasn't to throw people off. Nevertheless, once he did get to the area of, like if you want to call it a gully or so, a canyon, which gets narrow the further you go down it, of course. You do have selections of shallow caves here and there. And he also said you can explore them, but there wasn't really explorable. And still to this day, hikers haven't been able to do that. But, you know, where it says saying that the cave looked to be exactly in an area like this, ground level, just so happened to be outside, somewhat of a cave shape, which just happened to be covered with rocks, which some believed was natural, others believed was filled in. And to be honest, the way the mine shaft has gone in recent time, a fill in, a cover up, other areas could be treated the same way, whether that's to hide secrets or just to simply stop people going on in. You never know. Besides that, it says he did not, however, end up locating the M cave on his hike. And though he was lucky enough to record both a bighorn sheep and desert tortoise, he came home empty-handed. Well, in terms of the bighorn sheep, bit of an eerie feeling the way it was overlooking him in the distance. Sean Horlacher experienced the same thing, maybe in a similar area. So it was like a bit of a weird crossover. As you're leaving, you've got something peering, luring over you. Bit of a creepy, ominous feeling in a way. Well, when Kenny Veach did come out of Picture Canyon, reflecting on, well, I didn't find a cave, but it should have been easy to find. That's what's weird, you know. At first, he said it was hidden. If it's hidden, it's hard to find if you were trying to search for it on purpose. If you just happen to come across it indirectly, and now you know the route, it should be easy to relocate. Yet Kenny wasn't able to do that. So what do you think of the factors as to what led to him not being able to relocate it? Because I think there's different outlooks. But you can let me know below in the comment section. So, Kenny would return to the desert to try to find the cave one more time, November 10th. It was that trip that would prove to be his last. He set out on another solo expedition, telling his girlfriend that he would be gone for 2 nights and 3 days. I think it depends where you read it. Some have worded it that, yeah, he would camp out there like an overnight stay, 1-2 days, not 3 days. And that he would let her know when he had returned. But when 3 days turned to 4, 4 days turned to 5, Kenny's girlfriend began to get nervous. What? Really? I don't remember it being worded quite like that. Do we actually know that the girlfriend got nervous? Because if she got nervous, She lied about reporting Kenny missing and claimed it was like a day or two after, but it turned out to be 7 days later. And the longer you leave it, the less nervous you appear, right? Anyway, it states here, police records state that Kenny was officially reported as missing around 5 p.m. November 17th, a full week after he left town, according to Susan Veach, Kenny's sister-in-law. The police only launched their search and rescue operation November 22nd, missing the most crucial days for a successful search and rescue operation. Hallelujah! This is the first time in a very long time, might be the first time ever, where an actual article has acknowledged the truth. That the girlfriend actually reported Kenny missing 7 days later. Though, other articles in the past have stated the girlfriend, roughly in quotes by her, she reacted quick. But the real truth behind the police report was she didn't. She left it 7 days too late. This article does acknowledge the 7 days later, which is good. But it's also implying that Sharon Pilgrim, the girlfriend, purposely left it that long, which she did, but it would have been nice if this article acknowledged what the girlfriend originally claimed, as in a day or two reporting Kenny missing, which turned out to be a big lie. The article here should hammer down on the fact that the girlfriend lied, and that's a major red flag. But this article is trying to justify that, the girlfriend took their time, which, yes, is true, but you still need to acknowledge what they were also claiming as in doing it earlier when they didn't. Because a lie is just as important as the truth. So you can compare and contrast it. A full week after. At the end of the day, it does go both ways. It depends who has access and who doesn't. Who's available, who's in danger, and who isn't. If you have a loved one, you know of someone, you care about a person. In this situation, Sharon being the girlfriend to Kenny Veach the boyfriend to Sharon, who can respond? If Kenny Veach has gone out hiking, he's in danger, he's disappeared, he's injured, incapacitated, unconscious, dead, kidnapped, whatever, he probably won't be able to reach out to Sharon, the girlfriend. But is Sharon available, alive and present? Yeah. So you'd think that at least one of the two would make an effort to reach out and get answers. And yet it's delayed here. At the end of the day in life, if you care a lot and you care about someone, you will take a form of action to ensure that they're safe, to reach out to see if they're okay. And if under the circumstances where the other person is present too, if they care so much, then they should give clarity and context. But with Kenny Veach, it seemed unlikely. It was one-sided communication. But that didn't even happen either, because Sharon seemed quite casual about it, so not much was done initially. Initially, when it mattered most. Communication goes a long way, not just in cases, and not just internally as a microcosm here, but like with relationships, like with family members. Communication is needed, so there can be a form of clarity, there can be a form of closure. And it seems like, in this case specifically, there's not a hunger or a desire for closure, or at least in the moment at the time, with the relevant people, the victim's family, the girlfriend, etc. And sometimes, maybe people don't act, respond, explain themselves because they just don't care. But then other times, people won't act or respond because there's no need to worry, because they actually know what's really gone on. And if it benefits them, does the general public need to know? It's a bit of a murky area when you look at it. Anyway, besides that, it's good though how it does acknowledge that it took 7 days later. But it's interesting how it says, according to Susan Veach. Besides Susan Veach, the actual proof and evidence of the police report was shown visually. And as for the date of the initial Red Rock search and rescue, it says police launched their search and rescue operation. Not quite, it was Red Rock. search and rescue, an actual team that normally go out there looking for missing people, not directly police. And that was already mentioned in the old official news articles. But the police report wasn't really made clear in the early days. But when Susan Veach was around, it was made clearer. So there was benefits, there was positives to that. So I can understand where the credit is given there. But this is the thing, you see a pattern where Susan Veach, credit is given to her, but credit isn't given to other hikers and other people in the case that have been covering it much longer and have provided different perspectives. So far, this article has just said there's other YouTubers and people out there that have been dedicated to the case. It's a shame it's not giving examples, but, it is what it is. It was that day that Red Rock Search and Rescue announced they had found Kenny's phone close to a very vertical old mineshaft. But which one exactly? At precisely the location where he had filmed his initial YouTube video. And yet, the original report by Dave Cummings, the commander of Red Rock Search and Rescue, just said a vertical mineshaft, not explaining which one. So it is still vague. There was no sign of Kenny down in the mineshaft, and officially, that was where the trail ran dry, as in the scent. That's an important component in the search for Kenny. He didn't go any further. He didn't try going up a mountain or a canyon to hide and end his life, from the looks of it. And he didn't appear to even go into the mineshaft. But that mystery could become more unknown now because it's been filled in since, of course. He could have double-backed on himself, as for Kenny. Anyway, and no new evidence was ever found by the rescue crews. That's true. In the months and years since, at least 2 additional search and rescue operations were launched, but all came up empty-handed. Really? In the months and years since? I'm only aware that within the, first month or so in 2014 of November onwards, the search for Kenny Veach, and then it went cold real quick. I wasn't aware that there were additional search and rescue operations launched years onwards. That seems like complete BS. We've yet to see that. Yes, there's been volunteers that have gone out there back and forth ever since. But in terms of a proper rescue operation, if you're implying Red Rock Search and Rescue, they have not been out there since unless they've done secret searches. How weird is that? I believe that's from a specific Google Earth, unless that's Google Earth Pro. Because what's happened is, and I remember SB Vegas Adventures bringing it up recently, that when you do go online on the maps, there's like an official marker now implemented called Kenny's Mineshaft. So the negative to that is it's literally putting it on the map, but it's becoming maybe more of a tourist destination. And if it attracts the wrong type of people, that could impact the case. But maybe it might deter people now with now knowing the mineshaft is filled in, so it's not accessible. Anyway, as for the infamous M cave, there we go, finally. It has never been definitively found either. There are at least 3 contenders for caves and rock formations that fit the general description that Kenny gave. But as of yet, no consensus has emerged on which, if any, are the real M cave. So that's been worded rather interestingly, because out of all the articles which we've looked at, they've never really acknowledged the potential for an M cave here or there. It's just said it's not been found, and that's it. Here, they're at least acknowledging that there are contenders. There's some possibilities to an extent. That's good wording. Although there is no definitive answer to what happened to Kenny Veach on that fateful November, locals, loved ones, and internet sleuths, oh God, that word, have tended to subscribe to one of 4 theories. What are these 4 theories? Because I'll tell you something, based on the videos and analysis I've done, there's definitely more than 4, all of which have some evidence in support of them. Interesting. The first theory is that there was foul play involved, and Kenny was disappeared or went missing by some nefarious forces, whether it be the military, secret agents, or even aliens or demons. Right, Well, this is rather interesting because whilst credit has not been given, I believe this article is from 2024. And what's happened before that? Well, we had the Really Robin situation talking about demons. We had the Sean Horlacker situation talking about reptilians. And in general, we've heard the references of aliens and military. The Jeff Clark situation highlighting the military land proposal takeover and trying to cover secrets and maybe silence Kenny Veach in the process. So up to now, whilst it's a little bit vague and credit hasn't been given, we can see that this individual or people have been doing research in the background, right? And maybe from my channel and onwards with all those theories. By mentioning demons, that's hardly ever talked about by other news articles out there. Normally, it's just military, Area 51, aliens, done and dusted. But to give additional examples like demons, they've done the research here. The second theory is that Kenny was the victim of a more typical wilderness accident. Perhaps he fell into a mine. If he fell into a mine, doesn't that contradict what was mentioned earlier on about where his scent ended at, a mine shaft in which he wasn't found to be in there? So how did he fall into a mine then? Or are you implying that Kenny did go up to a mine shaft, his scent ended there, he turned back round, double backed on himself, and then fell into a different mine shaft? But what other mine shafts are out there and are that deep? Because the other one that's been found in recent time by SB Vegas isn't as deep. And it doesn't look like that Kenny's buried under there either. So yeah. But beside falling into a mine, died from hypoxia in a cave. Problem with that is, there's yet to be a cave that's explorable. Okay? No one's found an explorable cave yet. Or Kenny was killed by a mountain lion or simply got lost and died from exposure. To some extent, why would Kenny get lost unless he was dehydrated, disorientated? Because he's familiar with the area. He's been out there quite a few times, so he should know where he's going. The third theory, somewhat predictably, is that he took his own life and never intended his body to be found. But if his scent ended at the mine shaft, he didn't go any further. And if he died on the spot, you'd expect items to be found present nearby. That's what can't really make sense. Whilst yes, Kenny could leave his coins, phone behind so he doesn't get traced or tracked any further into the desert, his scent can't be removed. Wherever he goes, his scent will follow. So I guess Kenny didn't take that into consideration. Anyway, lastly, some people believe that Kenny orchestrated his own death and is still very much alive and well. It makes a change that that theory is acknowledged, whether people believe in it or not. The main pieces of evidence that proponents of military explanations cite are the relatively close proximity to the notorious Area 51 and the ominous comment warning Kenny not to enter the cave. Although Area 51 itself is over 50 miles to the northwest of Kenny's last known location, that's true. The larger Nellis Air Force Base that surrounds it, you mean the test range, not the base, begins just 10 miles west of the mine where his phone was found. Some have also speculated that the strange vibration that Kenny said he felt at the M cave was in fact the product of secret military or even alien technology. Why the military would hide such technology miles from the base perimeter is anyone's guess. It also is worth repeating that the YouTube user who warned Kenny, Let Me Kill Mister, was commenting on a UFO conspiracy channel whose fan base did not shun paranoia, to say the least. Well, besides that, one thing this ultimately fails to acknowledge, besides the location of Kenny, hike, and military land, and it's a big one that's failed to be acknowledged, so they've not done the research enough, is that after Kenny Veach's disappearance, roughly around 1 year onwards, all of a sudden, the military did a land proposal takeover to make it private, so then the military control all of that hiking area which Kenny Veach did, where the M cave is described to be. Think of the timing of that, isn't it rather strange? All the times beforehand, the military could have tried taking over the land, but they only decided to take action once Kenny Veach went out there and disappeared when talking about a mysterious cave. So it's a shame it's not been acknowledged here. What else do we have? Perhaps the strongest evidence in favour of this military hypothesis is the discovery of what conspiracy theorists say looks to be a sealed-off M cave. They argue that after Kenny found the cave and was close to discovering top-secret technology found within, military operatives carefully placed these white stones over the entrance in an effort to permanently seal the cave. When Kenny came back to the cave, the agents presumably saw an opportunity to tie up loose ends. It is also known that Kenny recorded a video in precisely this canyon before, but anything beyond that is little more than speculation. Well, yeah, the October hike video where he went out to try and prove to find it, he did go by this cave and said, yeah, it's on ground level like an area like here, so I've got to keep my eyes peeled, I don't want to miss out on it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Ever since, the odd rock has been removed by someone who may have been investigating or doing other stuff, but no one ever came forwards. Driven X Adventures did put a little camera in there, like a snake camera, but for me at least it was kind of hard to see the screen, but supposedly the ultimate conclusion was it was natural and it wasn't sealed. However, originally it was Sean Horlacher to have discovered and analysed this area. Sean Horlacher in 2019 that titled his video M Cave Covered Up, and went into depth as for like there's white seams, the base, the smoothness, how there's lines and how it's all shaped together. It also looks like there are patterns here and there, but if anyone was to say there's patterns at the bottom right corner, that's not. That's just a watermark from InShot, which is an editing app on Apple devices, and that's all. No marks on the rock there, in case you were wondering. So, yeah. But look, if Kenny Veach in the area came across a cave at some point, it makes sense for the military to try and cover up, to protect, to preserve it, and then in hopes that when Kenny just comes on by, he'll just walk on by, and technically he did. And also by him not being able to find it, it kind of discredits him, over promises, under delivers, then the community online fall out or lose interest or trust and belief in him, so then who's going to believe in him next? So third party involvement by military can have a psychological effect on others. It can happen at times. As the M Cave cover-up theory gained traction online, multiple hikers have gone to the area and uploaded longer videos of the white rocks that supposedly block the cave. Multiple hikers, as in who exactly? Well, Sean Horlacher was the first, 2019, to do a deeper analysis on it. Aquachiga, I think, in 2021, but he just simply walked by it and ignored it completely. SB Vega's Adventures has been hands-on. Scott Natal, can't remember if he had or not, but there'd be a fair chance that he had. And there'll be other people in between too who I may have not mentioned. There's been enough coverage at Driven X Adventures since. But what about the one next to it on the right, the shallow cave, which is the keyhole one? That's not been investigated enough, I would say. Well, anyway, besides that, the subsequent images poured cold water on the cover-up theory, showing that from a different angle, the supposed M completely stops being visible. Well, the thing is, it's not really an M to begin with until you start drawing it up and making sense of the shape. I think with most things in life, from a certain perspective, it's not going to resemble the same symbol as you would see front on. If you see it from the front, it will look a certain way. You see it from the side, it's not going to look the same unless it rotates. You need a bit of common sense there. Some of the rocks also have moss growing on them and do not appear to be at all out of place in their surrounding. However, ever since, one is missing, so there's been changes made or investigations secretly. The size of the entrance is also far smaller than Kenny's description of the cave. Well, Kenny described it as gigantic. He also described it as the height of him, and he's not 6 foot, he's under that, so I wouldn't say gigantic. Contradicts himself later where he says, I didn't find that funny little cave. So he says it's little, he says it's gigantic, and he also says it's the size of him, under 6 foot. So he can't even make his mind up, really. I mean, the cave itself, it's on ground level, true. In some ways it resembles a bit of an M. In addition, when you compare it to a Cord Research Cave M, the transparency on it actually fits the size and shape, which is a bit creepy. Besides that, the top of this M looks to be only 4 or 5 feet tall and barely large enough for anyone to squeeze through. Well, I think it would be more possible that if it was uncovered to be a cave, there's more chance of fitting in there than some of the other places, I think, just generally speaking. If there was a cavity there at all, still the military cover-up theory is hardly the most outlandish explanation presented. One YouTuber who had devoted multiple videos to the case is convinced that Kenny was murdered by a demon. Oh no! No, what is this? You know what? I was reading it at first and I was thinking, is this it? Is this finally when Warlight Ref gets the credit where it says one YouTuber devoted multiple videos to the case? But then when it said convinced that Kenny was murdered by a demon, nope, that's not me, of course. But who was somewhat convinced that Kenny was murdered by a demon? Really Robin. So it's a coincidence how we've come across this article now, and with everything that's going on with Really Robin in the background at the moment, and here it's indirectly referring to Robin. Yeah, but not a chance. And we were talking about the original Really Robin. Yeah, he was a YouTuber. He hadn't devoted multiple videos to the case. He uploaded like three or four videos of Kenny Veach. Compare that to Warlight Ref, who's uploaded 500 plus. Yeah, I don't think the original Robin was devoted to the case. No problem with being devoted or not, but this article has got that severely wrong. And it was mainly Robin, or only Robin, that was towards the end focused on Kenny being killed by a demon. But he wasn't devoted, and he didn't upload multiple upon multiple of videos. So yeah, the article's messed that up. On face value, the wilderness death theory appears to be far more plausible. Kenny himself admitted that he enjoyed roughing it on his hiking expeditions, and often only brought a small bottle of water and a snack on his prolonged outings. The region certainly has no shortage of tragic hiking deaths. The main national preserves in the area, Death Valley, Mojave National Preserve, and Joshua Tree, all report numerous deaths from falls, dehydration, exposure over the years. Just 5 years before Kenny's disappearance, a local woman in the town of Ridgecrest died after falling nearly 100 feet in an abandoned mine, not unlike the one Kenny showed in his video, where Kenny too found himself in a similar situation. Rescuers would stand little chance of finding him in time. Well, the mine shaft with Kenny is much different than this other one of the woman some years back. Yeah, I mean, as for Kenny roughing it up and pushing his body, he could have succumbed to the environment if he pushed it too far. But if his scent ended at the mine shaft, if he did die, if his bones were scattered by animals, you'd expect at least his personal possessions, additional possessions, to be still there near to the mine shaft, besides the phone and coin, the gun, backpack, hat, tent, things like that, but not there. So it is a bit weird how some things were left behind and others weren't. Kenny himself admitted that he once needed emergency services to rescue him in the wilderness after he injured his knee and was able to walk back to his car. Well, he originally said that he covered 20 miles in one direction up a mountain, and that's when he did his leg in. Shame his comments no longer available to read anymore. But yeah, his family recalled another story of him being bitten by a rattlesnake and requiring urgent medical care. I believe that might have been mentioned on Kenny's Facebook page in the past. Either of those could have easily proven lethal if he found himself alone without access to his phone. Given the fact that nearly 2 weeks passed between him leaving on his trip and the eventual search and rescue operations, it is not inconceivable that mountain lions got to his body first, but it doesn't explain what happened to his possessions, which disappeared. And by the time help came, whatever remained was already carefully hidden away. Alternatively, the M cave itself may have killed him even without the help of secret military operatives. It's possible that the vibrating sensation he reported near the entrance to the cave was in fact hypoxia-induced tingling caused by bad air in the cave. But even if that was the case, there is yet a cave to have been found by other hikers since, which could be explored. They've all turned out to be shallow, empty. But with the theory with perhaps the most evidence behind is also the saddest. Oh, here we go. He may have simply taken his own life. Some months after his disappearance, longtime girlfriend, who doesn't appear to be or as a girlfriend at the time from how Kenny described it, left a lengthy comment on Kenny's video. Now, we've already seen this and read it, so if you want to pause it, feel free to do so. Saw a recent comment of, I don't know how true it is, saying about how Kenny's father passed away years ago, way back in the past. But it was also reported that the family only reported the death of, I think, Teddy Veach, the father, 2022 onwards or so. I don't know how true that is because I've not seen that myself. Hey, but look, here's a certain comment. In early October, we're seeing his depression increase. This is Sharon Pilgrim, the girlfriend, talking. I said to him, "You aren't going to pull a Robin Williams on me, are you?" How does that help the situation? If someone is down or struggling and you make a joke directly to them, how does it really help? Unless you've got a dark sense of humour and they do too. If not, or if in a situation where it's not a laughing matter, saying something like that will not help. It could make things worse in a way. Anyway, continuing, Kenny's girlfriend explained that she believes he intentionally left his cell phone at the mine so that he could not be tracked with GPS signal. Yet he was tracked, not by the signal, but by his scent, hence why they found the phone at the mine shaft, and that's where the scent ended. So besides the GPS tracking, let's just say Kenny Veach kept his phone on him whilst he was hiking out there. The scent, if it ends at the mine shaft, it ends at the mine shaft, and so should Kenny too, because the scent comes from Kenny. You can get rid of a GPS so you can't track Kenny, but you can't get rid of the scent of someone so you can still track Kenny, right? It also says, and noted that he did not take his video camera with him on his hike, suggesting he had no intention of recording anything. However, the girlfriend also said in a different comment, there was a different camera which was missing from the house, so he probably took that instead. So he did intend on recording something. Further evidence seems to corroborate this story. When the police searched Kenny's home, they found he had typed out the words, help me," over and over again on his computer. But that could mean anything, really. Help me financially, help me find a house, help me find a girlfriend, help me find love, help me resolve this mystery. It could be anything, really. It's quite vague. It's also known that he had brought his 9mm handgun with him on his fateful hike, just like how he did in his recorded hike. But did he end his life there? No. So, you've got to take that into consideration. It can also be used for protection. Perhaps he even played up the MK story to leave a mystery behind so that he would not be forgotten. Well, to not be forgotten, you don't have to end your life over a mystery. To not be forgotten, you can create a mystery and further reinforce it by pretending to go missing. That would make sure that you're not forgotten. Not everyone in his family believes this explanation. However, in a subsequent interview recorded some years later, Susan Veach, sister-in-law, presents an entirely different theory along with compelling new evidence. And that is bollocks, to be honest, because this new evidence well actually dated back earlier and actually originated and the discussions formed before Susan Veach in the first place, and it was on GLP. Then I did my video, first one on YouTube, and that's what attracted Susan Veach, and she learned about it. Okay? I believe, from my memory, that's the order of how things went. So they worded it as if Susan Veach knew of it in the first place and had all the answers, but that wasn't the case. It was GLP, and then it was me, the catalyst on YouTube, and then Susan heard about it and saw it and then was influenced and went from there with what she believed and already knew of. So let's make that extremely clear. Crazy. Debbie Veach, Kenny's sister, is the owner of the local holistic health centre, Enchanted Healing Store. On July 15th, 2018, her shop experienced a break-in, and it was during the night. Man smashed a window, ran inside, immediately went behind a counter to take an iPad. Bollocks, that's incorrect. The person climbed on in, walked quickly around the back, grabbed a drawer. For some reason, it was locked. Then they got back up, walked back round, dropped something on the floor, fumbled, and then eventually, when they were leaving, they looked to the side and grabbed the iPad. The question is, what was the iPad doing there? Why was it left on? Why was it left on charge overnight in an empty store? It's a bit of a danger hazard, that. Not good. Although the footage is grainy and shot in black and white, Susan is convinced that the man in the video was none other than Kenny Veach. I mean, in terms of the clothing, you could put the argument across. In terms of the hairline, yes, you could. This particular image does appear a little stretched as for the proportions, or at least that's how it appears here. The face isn't quite clear, it's quite blurry. I believe that there were different camera angles in the healing store too, but they chose not to use that or review the footage, which is a little bit weird. He is holding something in his hand, which could have been a crowbar or something to break entry in the first place. The Enchanted Forest. The man is also seen grabbing his knee and limping, and Kenny was known to have knee injury from his previous hiking trip that persistently caused him pain. Susan also suggests that only a close family friend would know precisely where to look to get the iPad, so quickly further backing up her claim that it was Kenny who robbed Debbie's store. Well, he didn't quickly grab the iPad. Some have suggested that it was a second thought. He originally had something else in mind, to go behind the desk to open the drawer. Whatever he thought was in there, he felt was valuable. And then because that was locked, realised, well, what else can I get? Oh, there's an iPad there, I'll get that instead. Or you could argue and say he was initially going for the iPad, assumed that it would be locked in the drawer, turned out it wasn't, then realised or noticed that, oh, it's actually on the desk where I broke in, so get it that way. Different ways of looking. But the mention of Kenny limping or grabbing his knee, and it links back to his injury in the past. I was the one that made that observation before Susan, before this article. I was the one that made the observation. It's all documented and proof on my channel already, years back. I'm the catalyst behind that. Whether it's true or false, I am the catalyst behind that observation, like with a range of other stuff, but typically it gets forgotten about. But besides that, in Susan's own words, she said, I mean, instantly, I was like, oh my God, that's Kenny, when describing her reaction to the video. Continuing, she explained that she believes that either Kenny had a life insurance policy and wanted to cash out and start a new life, or he wanted to take advantage of his dad's retirement benefits, as his death was never reported to social insurance. Is that so? And Kenny could get away with living under his dad's name. Right, so this is the part which has come about by a viewer on my channel in recent times. So I hope you're watching in the background, if you know, and just provide some links in regard to this, the proof of that. Kenny's daughter, Vicky Veach, also briefly said that she believed the man on the video was her dad, and then before retracting her statement. But she also said that she didn't want her dad to get in trouble, so she didn't want to report it to police. Officially, the man in the video has never been positively identified, and no arrest for the break-in have ever been made. And the police / store owner didn't want to follow up on the fingerprints either, used the excuse that too many customers have touched the desk and behind the desk, which isn't true. That is essentially where the story ends, still with no definitive conclusions or true closure to Kenny's family. M Cave has never been positively found, no human remains have been recovered. True, the case is still considered unsolved by local police. You know what's missing from this? Granted, it talks about the CCTV footage of 2018, and yes, it talks about Susan Veach, giving credit to her, like bowing down, but not other people. And yet, it fails to acknowledge the catalyst, Susan, behind the whole missed call by Kenny on Facebook Messenger, in which November of 2022, I think, is when Susan ended up realising she had a missed call from Kenny's Facebook account. Tried calling back, no answer, and eventually Kenny's account manually uninstalled the Messenger app. So someone was using it at the time for sure. Was it Kenny Veach? Was Kenny Veach also alive in 2022? It makes you think, but why doesn't this article include that if it's going to include the CCTV footage claim? How weird. Anyway, do we have anything else? As with many internet mysteries, there are sprinkles of other evidence here and there, but the more you look into them, the more it feels like you are grasping at straws. There is another purported sighting of Kenny walking the Nevada desert just a few years ago. Well, if it links back to the correct time, because I can't remember the year when Driven X Adventures did his video, Driven X Adventures claimed to have come across Kenny alive and had a conversation and recorded the voice. It wasn't up close to footage, but you could hear the voice, and it sounded like Kenny. But Susan said it wasn't Kenny, but it sounded like. I mean, it happens. It's interesting, though. But once again, you know, no credit is given to Driven X Adventures, but it's vaguely described as in that's who the person that, you know, purported the sighting. And this article, people have done the research to some extent. Anyway, there is a rumour that a large femur bone was recently found near Kenny's mine. What? Multiple other YouTubers claim to have found the true M cave, and they all look slightly different. All told, there are something like 50 hours of videos related to the disappearance in one way or another, with each one just a tad longer and a tad bit more rambly than the last, but nothing substantial has come to light and perhaps never will. It might be a bit rambly, but at least it goes into depth and detail, unlike these people or person that can't be bothered or asked to give credit to the actual YouTubers, which you're describing vaguely. But what the hell is going on about a large femur bone? If it's that large, are we talking about a bloody, I don't know, giant? I don't think that's going to be Kenny Veach, is it? If you're just talking about a femur bone that was found nearby, it wasn't by Kenny's mine shaft. It was up. I always get mixed up. Not Deathman Canyon. It's, you know, you got Little Joe May Canyon, and then it's on the right as if you were heading east. Something Canyon. And basically, it was described on behalf of Gene Lukowski that said there was a search guy called Kenneth Yeager doing a private search out there and came across a femur bone, which an update was given down the line, and it turned out to be an animal one, but they were looking for another missing person. Whether that was all true or made up by Gene Lukowski, that's another thing. I don't know if this article is referring to that, because if they had, they got the location completely wrong. For my own part, I believe the suicide explanation is the most plausible. If Kenny said that if he decides to do it, he would never be found, I'm inclined to believe him. He would not be the first to choose to take his own life in his barren landscape, and tragically, he's likely not the last. The only thing that can be said definitively about Kenny's disappearance is that until the day that a hiker finally stumbles on his remains, his case will remain one of Mojave's greatest unsolved mysteries. And there's a photo of Kenny Veach. If he was to break it down to just suicide out there, how does it explain the scent ending at the mine shaft? Okay, you leave the phone behind so you can't be tracked where you go next. But you can't just get rid or make your scent magically disappear. Wherever you go, your scent will follow. So if Kenny had gone to the mine shaft, turned back, gone up a canyon or a nearby cave, technically the scent should have led up to that spot. Yeah, it didn't. So is Red Rock completely telling the truth, or they're limiting certain information? It does make you think that. But, you know, at the end of the day, this article is probably the best one we have come across for the variety and the latest research done, just coming short with giving credit to the specific people, and also falling short with the main deal of Kenny's missed call on Facebook, which Susan reported on and experienced. Disappointing how the whole CCTV footage is made popular because of Susan Veach or the HLN documentary, where the reality is it truly originated in regards to Kenny from Godlike Productions from like 2020 or even before that, and then onwards, me on YouTube. It goes unnoticed. But beside that, for those that are watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and it was interesting. Be sure to hit the like button and share the video to spread the awareness. If you want to hit the hype button below if you're on mobile near the comment section, feel free to do that. And make sure to check my earlier video that I did today, available where the eye symbol is. We'll see what happens next. Next video is either going to be a live premiere, catch-up, roundup, where we go deep in discussion, or it will be another focused, important video which looks into Kenny Veach, which is just as important, if not more. just see what works best next and anything in between. That being said, my name's Wallach Rath. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.